materialistic because it is somehow based on the assumption that even subjects have to be prepared to be proper citizens. Even subjects have to be prepared and formed and constituted in terms of the different of the cross relations they are subject to. So this is just as much as I can say about that spontaneously.
If I could jump in here, this was a question that arose in me in looking at the structure of the talk, insofar as early on you really talked about this key distinction for both Marx and Freud between the manifest and the latent. Mm-hmm. And you also, I think, want to understand free association for both Freud and Marx, I think more understandably for the former rather than the latter, as therapeutic. And I'm wondering if that doesn't conflict with this Foucauldian move at the end, because Foucault, of course, puts into question the manifest, the latent, the therapeutic. And indeed, this is something we're talking a little bit about in class next little while, the interpretive, right? The move is one of being, in a sense, against interpretation, against a deeper meaning that one can excavate as a latent content hiding behind manifest. For the reasons you just gave, right? That the social in the individual are primordial, right? The social is that which constitutes the therapeutic. It's what constitutes the latent and the manifest in a single gesture, as opposed to exercising a repressive force on something like.
I really understand your point, and in this sense, I'm probably not an orthodox Foucauldian. In fact, I only mentioned Foucault once, so please. All that I used Foucault, implicitly I actually mentioned it twice, because the archaeological approach that would have been possible is a Foucauldian approach too, and it would have been very strongly critical of the belief in some timeless topicality. Contradiction doesn't really make sense, but you know what I want to say. Yeah. In either of these theories, or in both of these theories. But what I used Foucault for, why I actually mentioned him here, was that we find a line of tradition for which Foucault is an example, in which the equiprimordiality and the isomorphism of subject and body politic is taken seriously. And I would say Foucault plays a very important role in that genealogy, and then again, probably more ontological, probably more hermeneutic or suspicion approach might be helpful to continue with the project in non-Foucauldian terms. I don't know.
Michael.
A bit off topic, I think, but you mentioned the madman. How would that individual or something, I know like in Freudian sense, but as far as like association, there's disassociation with the mad. How does that fit into?
Yeah, okay. Let me try to reconstruct where and why I mentioned the madman in this law. The interesting part about the history of the concept of association in British empirism is that Locke already speaks of association as something that is typical for madmen, but then again, we are all mad to a certain degree. Yeah, and why did I find this interesting? Because this is more or less what Freud says, that we are all neurotic in some sense, we're all mad, and we shouldn't be too afraid of admitting that. Now you're asking in how far the madman actually is dissociating himself from society.
Because you said that by association makes politics, there can't be alienation, or that can't be alienated.
Yeah.
But the madman would be.
Okay. It's really, the madman comes in with Freud, and a form of politics that cannot be alienated comes in with Marx. And now, while I'm claiming that there are very strong structural analogies, how? let me try to understand myself again. I would say that one of the analogies could be that a certain degree of madness, a certain degree of not committing to or submitting to the dominant forms of representation, organization is in all of us, like Locke says, even on the level of politics. So that a certain degree of dissociation might be paradoxically, dialectically, the precondition for forms of political association. But that's just spontaneous. Yeah, I think actually when speaking about the madman, I'm speaking about the association of ideas and things that take place in individual level. And I probably shouldn't make a too strong use of that word and when I try to point out the similarities.
Is there some way to, I was wondering about the assumption about equiprimordiality, if I can put it that way. If you want to retain something of the structure of the manifest and the latent, maybe you have to dispense with that idea, but I understand why you want to keep it. Like, can you imagine some other structural kind of relationship which would still play the same role as the primordial, if I put it that way, but which would allow you to retain the manifest latent thing, not get into the problem that Samir's talking about?
I'm not really sure whether I really understand.
Well, it strikes me that the idea that the individual and society are, in a sense, unified in the process of development.
Yeah.
One wants to retain that, but it's difficult to retain with this distinction between the manifest and the latent.
Yeah.
It strikes me as a really valuable hermeneutic approach.
Yeah.
Is there I guess what I'm asking is sort of speculative in a way. Is there some other way to imagine this relationship other than on the basis of equiprimordiality? Some other kind of relationship between the self and society?
Yeah.
What's it getting at?
Well, I understand.
Because you don't want to end up in that disciplinary, that we get, this is psychology, this is...
No, but why would I want to do that? Because in my mind, it somehow makes sense to speak of an equiprimordiality. And what am I thinking of? Think of the beautiful description in Marx on the Jewish question that he gives about the separation of two subjects in the constitution of bourgeois politics, homme and citoyen. And this particular separation, which is the ground even for Marx, for any kind of bourgeois politics, has to be reproduced and produced, of course, in every single subject to a certain extent. And I don't know whether we are talking about terminology. This is the phenomenon that I want to describe. And now I said equiprimordiality, I could call it dialectical interplay between...
Maybe it is terminological.
But I'm a bit afraid of using too much dialectical terminology because, I try to reconstruct some things against the backdrop of the failure of both of these traditions. So I try to take them seriously without getting lost in their terminology too much. I mean, I guess I do. But,